Something wrong with the headphones?
Yeah, I don't know, man. So when I do client calls here at work, that's how I do them with those headphones. So I don't know if something recently wrong. My computer's a piece of shit, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's something with my computer more than anything else.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Well, thanks
Can you hear me
thanks for
clear
coming
and everything?
Yep.
Okay.
It's pretty good, pretty clear. So,
Cool.
all right. Well, thank you for coming on, Luke. For those of you guys that do not know, this is Luke Miller. He has been a friend of mine for a couple of years now. He is a fellow graduate of the USF Exercise Science Program, Master's in Exercise Science, newly signed on with Animal as a brand ambassador. I know that's a huge deal for you, and you and I both respect the hell out of that company and the athletes for that company. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Luke is also a bodybuilder working to get his pro card, which I think is coming fairly shortly. So thank you for coming on, Luke. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I'm excited to be on. So
what this series is about is kind of trying to give a voice back to bodybuilders. Okay. True bodybuilders. You and I love this sport. We love this lifestyle, right? I want to dig a little bit deeper than just the surface. What's your diet? What's your training? I want to get a little bit more into your psychology. I want to get a little bit more into your story, your methodology, why you do certain things, and just the competitive nature of it and everything. And one thing that I really respect a lot about you is the amount of detail and attention you put into your training. Not just when you're in the gym, but outside of the gym, planning for it, getting it ready and everything. And I think that's actually, I just literally just made a post today on the Team BioLane page about your mindset. How do you go into your training? Are you someone that goes into your training and you decide when you get to the gym what you want to do? Are you the type of person that, you're thinking about it 2, 3, 4 a week ahead of time, right? I know the answer. I know what you are, but these are the questions that I tend to pose to people when I see they're not making efficient gains in the gym. They're not making the progress. I ask them things like, are you scrolling around on your phone? What is your mindset going into the gym? And in particular, I guess, when do you start thinking about your gym session? When do you start? I know you plan out your cycles and stuff, but as far as actually getting in the gym, take me through that process with you. When does that actually begin?
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of the psychological side of everything as well. So for me, if you're looking at it acutely, so on the session level, my sessions are already mapped out ahead of time, but where I really start checking in is when I'm starting to set up my logbook for the day. So I use an app that allows me to record all my lists, save all my lists, and I write my sessions from my program into my lists. And I typically do that about 15 to 20 minutes beforehand. And
what is that app, by the way?
What is it called?
It's something that everybody can download on their phone.
Yeah,
right?
It's called Rep Count. So
okay. Yep, I've got that.
Count, but I actually use the paid version because it allows you to chart some graphs on volume and stuff.
Nice.
So for me, it's kind of like a tool. If anyone has ever heard of like a simple Pavlov's dog basic psychology method, basically it's stating that you can create these triggers throughout your life that allow you to, over time, set it up to be consistently the trigger that allows you to check in for training. So for some people, that can be like flavor profiles on drinks, whether you use the same flavored pre-workout all the time. For me, it's my logbook, sitting down and looking at my session and writing it out and looking at the numbers I need to beat. On some of my bigger sessions, I already know the numbers I need to beat. I've probably been thinking about it since the last time I had that session.
Yeah, if you ask any true bodybuilder, they keep a logbook, but they don't really need it. They know what those numbers are.
Right. So, and a prime example for me is I use my headphones as another cue in. So, my logbook is the initial one to kind of check me in and focus for the session. Okay. But the moment those headphones go in is the moment I know the set is on. So, there's a concept out there called a soft focus based concept. Okay. Basically, what it means is you're not allowed. The concept is built around enjoying the time in between sets, being a little bit lackadaisical. Okay. But then having a cue that checks you in like big time, full seriousness, whether you're driver of emotional driver for sets is anger or happiness or whatever.
Right.
Using that, putting into the headphones to be the check-in that it's go time. So that's my second cue. That's going to be inter-session, so within the session. So a lot of times you'll see me training. I'll actually take my headphones out in between sets. I'll talk to my training partner, relax, just kind of observe the area. But once that timer goes off that it's time for the next set, like it's headphones in and it's game on. And
right.
I
think that's important too. It kind of brings your sympathetic nervous system down a little bit, allows you to reset and have full energy potential for the next set.
Right. And that's kind of where it's centered on, is maintaining central nervous system output throughout the session. Yeah. So it allows me to kind of maintain a high level of output throughout the entire session. Most people who know my stuff know that I'm a bit of a lower volume trainer anyways.
Right.
So
I was going to get into that in a minute.
All about output per set. So whatever I can do to allow for that output per set, I'm going to do it. And for me, this has been a very efficient way to be able to keep output high throughout the entire session.
Now, have you always been a low volume proponent, or did you start off with, like most people, just chasing the pump?
Chasing the pump, man.
Yep.
I think that's the stereotypical introduction to bodybuilding that people get. But
yeah. You've actually, talking with you, a lot over the past year especially, has really made me rethink my training, because I have always been that higher volume proponent. Because naturally, I am not a strong guy. Like, right. I'm not very type 2 dominant. Let's just put it that way. and I enjoyed the pump. But as I am aging, which, God, 35, I can't believe I fucking have to say this. I'm finding that switching more to your style, more towards that Dorian style of training, actually not only suits my body better for hypertrophy gains, but for general health, general recovery. My body just can't push the higher volume stuff as much anymore. I would much rather get in there, do a couple hard sets, and then, get out per exercise. So
right. And a way to kind of think about it too is having volume be the dose. So you may have heard this concept before, but there are many mechanisms of hypertrophy, right? Mm-hmm. It seems to be that, mechanical tension is one of the highest mechanisms of hypertrophy.
Absolutely.
So what we're doing is we are training at the max amount of volume that we can, within making sure that the priority is taking sets to the limit, absolute failure, and making sure that we progress each session from there. That doesn't mean that I don't add volume to people's programs, or that everybody trains on a super low volume program. It's just whatever your body can handle. As I've gotten stronger, I can obviously only recover from so much.
That's a major factor. Really that's a major factor I talk to about with clients and stuff, like, what program should I run? How many days a week? Well, let's start off with the minimum and see what you can recover from, because you can always add from there. It's harder to start off with, a lot of volume and cut back. Nobody wants to do that shit.
Right.
So you brought up a good point. There's a lot of different mechanisms for hypertrophy.
Right.
I think we both kind of going through our program realized, we get into the research and we get into the discussions that we had in our classes and stuff, and realize, maybe I shouldn't talk for you, but I feel almost like I'm more confused coming out of my master's, because the more the more rabbit holes you can go down in research, right? And you start thinking about things in a different way. What was did you change anything from your philosophy, your takeaway after our master's program?
Honestly,
or was there anything little that you've added to your own philosophy?
Yeah, man, I think it simplified it for me, actually. Mm-hmm. It can throw a lot of different ideas and confusing things at me. But I, just based on like some of the research projects that I did, my thesis project was on bodybuilding. So I came out of it that effort is priority, volume should be the dosing, and that the rep range maybe not be the biggest, consideration, right? Because research shows that like anywhere from 30 up to 85, 90% of 1RM, you can create a similar hypertrophy response from training to failure. And then if you bring in, blood flow restriction, that range even changes to even lower.
Absolutely.
So I think it kind of simplified training for me, that like if situations arise, you can still make progress with other adaptations that are going to allow you to do that. A prime example that kind of points that out is like when you have injuries or niggles or anything like that, you know, maybe you don't do load sets for that body part for a little while. Maybe the majority of your training is, 12s, 15s, 20s.
Just get some blood flow in the area.
To get blood flow in the area and maximize the metabolite accumulation, which in turn will create mechanical tension because of the metabolite accumulation. So I think it's made me more flexible and allowed me to apply a bunch of different concepts to different people to maximize growth. I do a little bit of everything with my coaching business, but to not lie, like 85% of my business is in the bodybuilding realm. So I just think it simplified it. I think that if you want to take what a base structure of a session would look like for me, I've always described it as prime, load, pump. So you're going to prime for whatever the main movement is. That may require a movement beforehand, or it may just be mobility work-based stuff. Perform your mechanical tension-based load movements, and then maximize metabolite accumulation with pump and volume. And you can do that with multiple different things. So rep ranges being higher, shorter rest periods, blood flow restriction if it's applicable. I've used BFR with a client who was having a lot of issues with a shoulder injury, trying to work around training biceps and things like that around the shoulder injury. We used BFR for 3 months and he improved. So it's just proof that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Yeah. But if we're talking what's optimal, that prime load pump is probably the direction that I would go.
And that's if any of you guys are following this and stuff, John Meadows talks about that quite a bit. I think that's pretty much how he kind of programs his training too, is he has that base primer movement and then moves on from there. But so you have been, let's talk a little bit about your competition history. You've done, what, 7 shows?
Yeah, 7 shows.
7 shows. Okay. At what age did you start? Not at what age did you start training? What age was your first competition?
First show was after my freshman year of college, so it would have been the summer between. So I was like 19-ish. 19. And I competed twice that year. I competed twice the following year, and then realized that I needed time if I was going to actually, jump up to the weight class that.
And all you guys listen to what he just said. He realized he needed time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so important. That recognition is so important.
Coaches come in a lot by having that voice of reason that it does take time to jump, especially like, that last show that I did before taking time. I was a welterweight. I was 160 pounds on stage.
Yeah.
And, I'm still trying to get to the weight class that I think I'm most competitive at, which is heavyweight. The last show I was a light heavyweight. That was at Europa.
Right. You came in at what, 195?
198 at weigh-ins, if you want to.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But that was.
I remember those last few weeks. I remember that last week or two beforehand in class, man. You were really trying to suck down.
Yeah. I was like, cut off for light heavy is 198 and a quarter, and I was like 200 first thing in the morning all the way up until that last couple of days. So we made weight. I was on stage at around 200 pounds.
Man. And
time to move to heavies.
Not having seen any of your other shows, but have seen the pictures, you made the smart choice, man. You made the smart choice taking some time off, and also not just trying to stay in that welterweight class, actually moving up. It did your physique a lot of good to pack on the weight. And, someone else who I'm really excited to see do the same thing is Flex Lewis in the Open.
Yeah.
Flex has had to suck down so hard for that 212 for so many years. Like, to see him not have any holds barred on anything weight wise and just see what he can come in as, I'm excited about that. But okay, so that was a little side tangent. So you did your first show at 19. When did you and how did you become interested in bodybuilding? Were you an athlete in any other sports beforehand?
Yeah, so this is going to sound kind of weird, but growing up, I was a pretty high-level golfer.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
I was traveling quite a bit for that. Pretty much every weekend was out of a suitcase. I lost my scholarship offers my senior year with a torn meniscus. And I had just kind of gotten into weight training for sport, and the gym that I was at had a very large population of bodybuilders. So when I decided I wasn't going to pursue golf after losing my Division I spots, I kind of got into the bodybuilding realm with that group of guys, and it was like, the best thing that could have happened, because I fell in love with it even more than I did golf at the time. And
that's why environment is so crucial. The environment you come in to it as, like, go ahead.
It's tough, yeah, but no. And growing up in that environment, I guess it really kind of privied me to understanding bodybuilding. I did a lot of things wrong starting off because I was stubborn and thought I could do it myself. But it's interesting because I found, growing up a fat kid, I found my niche in something that most people would never think that would be my niche, right? So,
right.
Yeah, it was really cool, and from there on, it was just like gasoline to fire, man. I've spent hours and hours and hours researching and doing it and stuff like that. So
that's something really interesting. You said you grew up a fat kid. I when I was younger, like probably up until about the age of 10 or so, I'm not gonna say fat, but I was a little pudgy. Like I had some baby fat that was hanging on for quite a while there.
right.
And it interests me because I hear a lot of people on both ends of the spectrum that get into bodybuilding. Either they were like us, where we were a little pudgier, or they were just really thin, right? And they just wanted to put on weight. And I also find that the more people I talk to and just interact with that are really into the lifestyle, into competing and bodybuilding, they were also athletes in other sports beforehand. Right. I think that discipline and that that sense of hard work, what it takes to train, having your diet on point, I think that really translates well into bodybuilding. Very few times do you see someone who wasn't an athlete growing up just decide, oh, I'm going to get into bodybuilding, right? It's usually something that leads into it. So did you have, because you are 25?
25, yeah.
25. Okay. So you're 10 years younger than me. So we are, I know, man, it doesn't seem like it, does it? So we are a little bit different eras, right? Like I literally I was in the era where I was buying magazines off the shelf. And I'm sure you probably did too, a little bit. Who was your inspiration when you started bodybuilding? Like, who was like the guy for you?
Oh man, that's hard. So when I first got into the bodybuilding part, I would watch hours and hours of videos of like Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman and like the BSN series that they did on Ronnie and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I would probably have to say those two. Like, just you see that picture of the classic Jay Cutler quad stomp, and you're just like,
yeah,
like that is just out of this world, right? And I would definitely say those have been the two biggest influences from early on in my career.
Mm-hmm.
As I've kind of gone on, there have been other ones that have influenced me, more the deeper I get in my career. And I would definitely have to give credit to John Jewett being the biggest influence.
John's actually going to come on. I contacted him. He's going to come on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So he's been more than just a coach. He's been a mentor, a friend. Helped me develop as a coach myself in my coaching business, and he's done a lot for me. And I owe so much to him that I would be remiss to say that he's probably been my biggest influence.
I was asked, I want to say this was maybe a month or so ago, who my favorite physiques are in bodybuilding right now. And 3 of the 4 that I named were John, Derek Lunsford, and Steve Kuklo, actually. Like, I love their physiques. But I also respect the hell out of John. I don't know him. I don't have a relationship like you do with him, but from an outsider's view and just a little bit of corresponding that him and I have done, I really, really respect him. And I'm really excited to get him on too and talk a little bit more with him. But of all the things that I'm sure he has talked to you about and he has taught you and mentored you about, is there one specific thing that really sticks out in your mind? that has either helped you with your business or with your own with your training?
Probably the fact that, and this is a concept I had heard of, but the execution, I guess, is not where I had seen it in person. Is going to be urgency on the daily, but patience in the long term. So,
ooh, I like that.
The urgency to execute all of the different variables on a day-to-day basis. So as a coach, right, providing content, providing value to people. As a bodybuilder, making sure that you're getting sleep, you're taking the proper recovery, taking care of your health, tracking your blood work, like taking your health supplements, and making sure you're taking the proper measurements to ensure progress and make sure that's done on the daily. Having that urgency to make sure that, if I don't make this day count, I'm not taking another step towards the end goal.
Yeah.
But understanding that bodybuilding is a sport of patience over the long term. And I guess kind of seeing that in action, especially, the few times I've been out there to see them and stuff,
right,
is probably one of the biggest things I've gathered. Now, tidbits of knowledge and stuff that have helped me, but the concept of daily execution for long-term results in action is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's huge. He seems like a very well-oiled machine, like a technician in there and stuff. I want to switch gears a little bit and ask your opinion on, as a first-time competitor, what kind of advice would you give people? And I'm not even really talking so much the training and nutrition aspect, but what do first-time competitors need to understand going into a show? It doesn't matter if you're going into an open. It doesn't matter if you're going into men's physique or classic. Right. What is it? And for the women too, because this is going to appeal a lot to the women. What would you say that going through 7 shows now, each one probably learning a little something new, what is the one piece of tidbit that you would have liked to know going into your first show that you now know?
So I guess the concept, I grasped this concept rather early. I had a guy that was helping me when I was younger, that helped me really grasp this, is the trust the process concept.
It's huge.
Really, that whoever you're going to be working with, and look into them and just trust the process, because when you're going through it your first time, there's a couple of things you've got to set up for yourself that you have to understand. One, it's going to suck. Like, no matter what the prep looks like, whether it's tons of cardio or not a lot of cardio, whether it's you can maintain pretty high calories or not, which for most people is going to be not.
Right.
It's going to suck, and it's going to suck a lot at the end. And making sure your life variables are in check is an important process of that, to be able to trust the process. Because at first you're not going to see much change day to day, week to week. But once you get to those final few weeks, that's when the change is going to come pretty fast. And the patience to be able to wait for that is going to be huge. So you need to understand to be able to trust the process, to be able to hit the long-term goal. And my biggest thing for first-time competitors is be open, pick a few shows, and just go through the process and choose the one that's going to fit the best.
Right. Absolutely. Now, you and I obviously are both very interested and very into the research side of stuff, right? Like, we like research. However, I think we both have a lot of bro in us too. What would you say? Yeah. What would you say is the biggest thing that you took, that you apply to your training right now, that you took from learning the research and going through grad school, and also that you've just learned from these guys that brought you up in the gym when you were little, and guys like John's very into research too. But he also is very into just understanding that it doesn't always correlate into the gym, right? So how do you mix the two, science and anecdote, into your own training?
So I guess the biggest thing to understand is that you have to look at the results on the table and not look at the research paper on the table. So you can take a bunch of concepts from a bunch of different groups of research papers and show me how it works on paper, but until it works in person, that would be kind of the tester of, what information you're gathering from your research. And I think the one thing that has stood the test of time since starting all the way to the end is simply effort.
Yeah.
I and
Do
I
you feel, I don't mean to interrupt, do you feel that sometimes, and I feel like this a lot, sometimes science is used as an excuse to not train hard?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially, and I hate to bring up this argument, but I'm going to do it. Um, Especially when it comes to some of this reps and reserve, volume accumulation type programs that I'm seeing done nowadays. Like, people are just, excuse my French, but a bunch of pussies.
Yeah.
I think that
How can you know what a rep or two shy of failure is if you don't know what failure is?
failure is, right. And now there's some concepts within that are good. So, like, understanding that volume is a dose, and that form should be first executed before other things, right? But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, when you look at the people who have been the top bodybuilders, the people who develop the most year to year, it's kind of plain and simple to me that effort is the biggest thing. Now, there's a lot of variables to control within that to make effort work for you instead of against you, but because that can happen. But
Mm-hmm.
and since I started to now, the gathering of knowledge through research has only verified the fact that at the end of the day, effort is going to pay off. And that's just on everything you do and within, like, the sets within your session as well.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is certain circumstances where, like, a reps and reserve type of a thing may be utilized properly. But when the discussion becomes, you know, maximizing potential or optimizing results within someone that's a competitor, it's hard for me to replace the fact that, you know, effort is going to put the best option on the table.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's what I find very difficult with some of my clients that I work with when I write their programs is I tell them up front, listen, I can tell you what to do here, but I can't control your effort, right? Like, that's on you. I can give you pointers and I can help you with all this, but effort is something that's individually controlled. And I think that a lot of people sometimes blame poor programming on the fact that they just don't know how to put in the right effort. And effort's going to look different to everybody, right? We all have our own perception of what our effort is. And I think that can be a very difficult thing. I want to talk a little bit about nutrition.
Okay.
From where you started in your bodybuilding career to where you are now, how has your nutrition changed during that? How is your perception, your thought process of your nutrition? How has that evolved as you've evolved?
I guess so. The biggest thing that you kind of see, I think the biggest thing you kind of see for nutrition on one side or the other is extreme macro based diet plans and extreme meal plan based diet plans. And I think the biggest thing that has adapted over time is that you need to understand the food groups that work for you, understand the intake of macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats within each meal and the timing of those. Because I don't care what you say, but I have seen time and time again with every single client that I've worked with that a macro approach can work, but that when nutrient timing is considered, it typically works better. It's just basic physiology, right? I mean, if we're considering, glucose uptake around training with the elevation of GLUT4, being able to transport, glucose from the bloodstream into skeletal muscle, right? And even, other cofactors that are going to be upregulated. It's hard to argue that nutrient timing can't work. So I think the biggest thing for me is that consistency over time so that you can control the variables that are going to be part of your nutrition. So, like, if you're not eating, consistently the same foods day in, day out, and issues arise, whether it be bowel movements, bloating,
Indigestion, stuff like that.
Indigestion, anything that comes along with bad digestion, I don't understand how you're going to fix it if you don't have something to, iterate a plan off of. And what that I mean by that is changing one variable at a time. Now, you can have your food groups that are going to cause issues for some people. Like a common one that's brought up is Fodmaps for individuals with IBS. And that does work for some people, but that's not going to be for everybody. A prime example is like for Emily, my wife. I coach her, and you know, we put her on a basic FODMAP diet, and it still wasn't doing much better for the IBS symptoms.
Okay.
Now we were still including whey protein, and at that point I was just like, F it. I literally walked from my apartment down to Vitamin Shop while she was at work one day, bought her a very good vegan protein that, is pea and rice based. And ever since then, she doesn't even follow a strict FODMAP diet anymore, and she doesn't get IBS flare-ups. So if you don't control your variables day to day, how are you going to know how to change? So
Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing, is controlling of variables. And if you understand what foods work with you, then that's where flexibility comes in, right? So like, a prime example for me today is with the call. I didn't have much time between my last session and the phone call. So I went with bagels and peanut butter and a whey protein shake instead of doing cream of rice, peanut butter, and a protein shake. But bagels are consistently in my plan.
Yeah.
So I'm not introducing anything new. I'm just
You're just
swapping
switching
out.
it around. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm getting the calories in, and I'm adjusting everything according to the macronutrient content of a bagel, which it was 2 bagels. So, I'm fat, I know, but
What are your calories up to right now?
So we're gonna start pushing my weight up this weekend. So I'll have one day during the week that's like 5,200.
Okay.
My other training days will be around 48, and then my off days are closer to 30, 39, 4. I'd have to look at my spreadsheet, but
Okay. So doing some calorie cycle in there. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that approach.
It'll be nice.
So that's awesome. So what are the plans? Competing this year? Taking the rest of the year off?
Not this year. I'm sitting around 2:30 right now. First thing in the morning.
Okay.
So I need to be about 2:45 first waking up. 2:50 during the day to really consider doing another show again. So timeline wise, it's probably looking 2021, early 2021. I don't really want to step on stage until I can just make a statement. I am jumping from the light heavyweight class to heavyweights. So that weight class is 224 and a quarter. So a lot more room.
Yeah, a lot more.
And with this move to Dallas as well, it's probably not the right time to prep for a show either. So
no, man, when you're making those big life changes like that, and you're still young, man. You got such a bright career, bright future ahead of you. There's no need to rush. You're still coming into your prime. So
yeah,
I tell people all the time, I'm like, well, a few people that are your age or a few years younger than I'm associated with, I'm like, listen, if I could go back sort of thing, but I don't have any real regrets in my life, but I do wish that I could go back to be 21, 22 with the knowledge that I have now and see what could happen. But I've still got a lot of good goals moving forward for like masters divisions and stuff. That obviously you and I, for those of you guys who don't know, Luke helps me out with some stuff, and he's been really good. He's actually going to take over my nutrition here pretty soon.
Yep, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so we talk on a regular basis. He's been a really big help for me. I'm going to put all his stuff in the description box below so you can go follow him. Luke also has a really good podcast out, the Half Natty podcast. Yeah. He does a lot of good stuff. Who's your co-host again?
Matt Nelson, friend of mine from undergrad. He's still located out of Birmingham. He does a lot more film work in the fitness industry. That's kind of his go-to thing. But he does a little coaching as well. So he's
okay.
Yeah, so he's a good guy to have on the show.
Yeah, you guys have you've had some great guests on there, and you guys have a lot of good conversations. So I'm going to link that below so everyone can go check that out too. And like I said before, Luke is a newly branded animal ambassador. Do you have a code or anything or?
No, so here at Animal, we believe that like the supplements work so well that we don't really need a discount code. We believe in the products. We use the products, and that's the biggest thing about the brand, is that it's not just supplements. It's a lifestyle that we believe in, and so pretty much every single animal athlete, brand ambassador, whatever it is not gonna have a code.
No codes.
Just
I
'cause we
actually just
believe in
got a new
quality.
shipment of I got some new Animal Whey isolate, and I got Fury, and that's all that came in this one. But yeah, man, that Fury's hardcore.
I like the Fury, man. I'm a huge fan of Pump Pro.
Okay, I gotta try that one.
It's John's product. I did a full video on my page.
Oh, that's right. I saw it. Yeah, I saw that.
About the different ingredients and why I believe in that product specifically. But yeah, I use a lot of their products. My staples are going to be Pump Pro, Fury, Animal Whey, and then the Universal Carb Max. I really like their amino product too, juiced aminos. So those are
that's the other one I've got. I forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, so those are my staples from the brand. I really like their multivitamin as well. The cool thing about the multi is that it now comes in the packs and a powder too. So
are you talking about the Animal Pack?
Yeah, so Animal Pack comes in like a powder that you can just put in water, or the packs.
I've got the Flex stuff, the joint stuff. I got the Flex that I put in there too. Yeah, it's so much easier with the powders.
They make so many different products, man. You can find pretty much anything you need.
Yeah. So I know you're not going out to the Arnold next week. We talked about that, but we're planning on going out to Olympia this year.
Yep, I'll be there.
Hopefully we can see John move up a little bit from that 4th place last year.
Yeah. If he keeps going the way he's going, I am really encouraged about where he's going to be.
Yeah. I'm really happy for him. He's good. So I kind of want to start wrapping things up a little bit. I'm just kind of curious to you, when I mention the term bodybuilder, how would you describe it? What comes to your mind? How would you describe the life of a bodybuilder?
I would probably say that the biggest thing would be a way of life and a mentality more than anything else.
It's a lifestyle.
I don't think the label as being a bodybuilder should be the way to discuss it, or the way even someone should label themselves, right? It's something that we do, and it's something that we love. Mm-hmm. So I would hesitate to call myself a bodybuilder, but that I'm just lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to compete in the sport of bodybuilding. And you can tell right away those individuals that fully understand that. Right. It's just the way that you approach your day-to-day life. It's the way that you approach your gym sessions. It's the way that you approach everything, because the sport carries over into the other things that you do. Mm-hmm. So I would describe it as a way of life more so than a label. Would be my biggest thing. So, and I am loving of all natures of fitness, but bodybuilding is something separate, and it's something that I really wish everybody could experience in some sort of way. Right. I don't think that competing's for everybody. I agree. I agree with that. I think there's tenets of it that you can take and apply that would just be beneficial for everyone. So,
yeah, I know. I absolutely agree with that. What do you think the biggest lesson or biggest benefit that bodybuilding has had on your outside life, outside of the gym? Like, as far as lessons learned or anything, like,
Yeah, I think it's just that everything matters. I think that one thing that conventional sports just don't teach you is that, as long as you show up to practice and you work hard, you're going to be fine, but the other aspects and factors of your life may not be the biggest thing. Now, you're seeing that promoted a lot more nowadays, but I think the understanding that bodybuilding is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year way of life carries over into understanding that, even that portion of your job or of your day that you don't like plays a factor into long-term success, whether that be being a businessman or running a gym or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every factor and every portion of everything you do matters. So for bodybuilding, that's your day-to-day, your habits, your nutrition, your sleep, your training, your recovery, and taking that concept and encompassing into whatever it is you do, whether you run gyms or whether you have a business or whether, whatever it is. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away is that, there should be planned time to relax and recover and have time with family. That's very important stuff.
Absolutely.
And it should be prioritized, but that understanding that wasting time might not be the best thing for your overall success.
Yeah, I think it's truly the only sport out there, not to say that the other ones don't do what I'm about to say, but it's truly to me the one sport that the other 23 hours in the day matter just as much as that hour you're in the gym, or 22 and 2, whatever you want to put it. Like basketball, you go practice, all that stuff. You see how many people mess around in in their off time and everything. It doesn't really affect their game like a bodybuilder who jacks around for those 23 hours a day outside of the gym, right? It's going to have a direct correlation over. So I think there's a lot of discipline, a lot of self-accountability that you get from bodybuilding that carries over into, being, like you said, a successful coach, successful business owner, successful husband or wife, or, all that stuff. So that's awesome. All right. So wrapping things up here, do you have an Arnold 2020 prediction?
Oh God, man. I'll be honest, man. I've been so busy trying to get my stuff together to move to Dallas in 5 days that I don't even
haven't been paying much attention.
I don't even know if I know the full lineup, to be honest. I will tell you that I'm very excited to see Terrence Ruffin on stage. I think he has improved his physique a ton. That's in the classic class.
Right.
I think the bodybuilding show is a toss-up. I don't think that there's one person that overly stands out. I think that, you got Dexter. Dexter's, doing it.
So, yeah, his last one. Really, the big three they're talking is Bonac, Rami, and Dexter.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see Rami. I think that if anybody out there, I think if Rami shows up, he's not going to be beaten. And that's going to be if he shows up like in shape,
Yeah, that's the big thing with Rami is he's never really on.
One thing you got to realize when you're dealing with monsters like that is it can get really finicky really fast with individuals. Everything variable-wise that you're trying to control is on a bigger scale. So, things can go from good to bad really quickly.
Yeah.
But I think if he nails this, there's no one that can stand next to him that can present a package as, because size is going to be a factor that plays into this, right? And you have symmetrical individuals. Like, it's hard to argue that Dexter isn't one of the symmetrical people on stage, but I don't know, man. Rami's just good front to back, top to bottom. It's hard to beat him if he's on. Now, if he's off, he's off, and I think that can be beaten. So
this is going to be this. They're saying this is one of the best Arnold lineups, if the best ever. And
ever.
I'm really thinking about trying to scout some tickets when I'm there, man. I want to go to that final so bad. I have a price in my head that if it goes above that, I'm not going to do it. But I would really love to go. And obviously we'll be hitting up the Olympia this year and stuff like that. But
yeah,
man, I want to thank you for taking some time. I know we're going on about 45 minutes and I know you're a busy man. So thanks for coming on. I think a lot of people can learn a lot from you. I know I have. You're not just a close friend of mine, but you're also someone that I go to and really respect with my own training, my own nutrition, everything, supplementation, stuff like that. So I really appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you coming on here. Why don't you tell people where they can find you? Of course, I'm going to put it in the description box below, but
yeah. So a lot of my content is going to be on Instagram. That's just Luke1294_Miller. I put up a lot of things that I do on that page. So we do have a weekly live podcast with the podcast where you can log into Twitch and ask questions directly as we're recording. So it's going to be every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
Half Natty Podcast is that podcast. You can always check us out on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anything like that. And those are my biggest two main sources of, content. I do have a lot of video content that we're trying to decide what we're going to do with it over the next few months. And I'll have wherever that's going to be posted on my social media. So
awesome.
Workouts kind of coming your way. You can kind of get a lot of that from my Instagram, though.
That sounds good, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. I could probably keep you for 3 hours, but I won't. We'll just have to have you back on and talk about another topic later on. Okay.
Sounds good to me, man.
All right, man. You enjoy your rest of your day, weekend ahead, and get ready for that move.
I appreciate it.
All right, bro. See ya.
See ya.